Imagine this: May 20, 1916, Stromness Whaling Station, South Georgia Island. The station's captain is enjoying a quiet meal when a frantic figure bursts into the room, shouting, "Come outside, you won't believe your eyes." The captain steps out into the biting cold and freezes, not from the weather but from shock. Standing before him are three gaunt, bearded men, looking like ghosts from a forgotten world. Their clothes are tattered, their faces weathered, as if they haven't seen civilization in years. The captain, stunned, asks, "Who are you?" The man in the middle steps forward and says, "Ernest Shackleton." Captain's jaw drops. He hadn't heard that name since November 1914, when Shackleton and his crew of 28 set sail from this very island on a daring mission. Their goal: to cross the entire Antarctic continent on foot, a feat no one had ever attempted. Months passed with no word, and the world assumed they were lost to the icy abyss. Yet here was Shackleton, alive, standing before him. The captain, barely able to process it, blurts out, "What happened to the rest of your crew?" Shackleton's eyes glint with a mix of exhaustion and determination as he replies, "You won't believe the story I'm about to tell you." Welcome, friends, to an epic tale of survival, leadership, and the unrelenting power of nature. I'm your host, and today we're diving into the incredible story of Ernest Shackleton's Imperial Trans-Antarctic expedition. Buckle up, this is no ordinary adventure. In 1914, Shackleton, a seasoned explorer, set out to achieve the impossible, to traverse Antarctica from one side to the other, crossing its frozen heart. The plan was bold but straightforward. One team would sail to the Weddell Sea, land on the Antarctic coast, and trek 2,900 kilometers across the continent to the Ross Sea, where another team would be waiting. Shackleton estimated it would take about 120 days. He handpicked a crew of 28 sailors, scientists, doctors, and even a photographer to join him aboard the Endurance A ship built to withstand the harshest polar conditions. Every crew member was chosen not just for skill, but for their ability to stay calm under pressure. In August 1914, as the world teetered on the brink of World War I, the Endurance set sail from England. By October, they reached South Georgia, the last outpost before the Antarctic wilderness. Locals warned Shackleton about the treacherous ice conditions, but his mind was made up. On December 5, 1914, the Endurance left South Georgia, heading into the Weddell Sea. At first, the journey was filled with optimism. The crew laughed, played cards, and marveled at the icy landscapes. But Shackleton kept a wary eye on the horizon. The sea was changing, water was turning to slush, then to thick ice. By January 1915, the Endurance was moving at a snail's pace, battling through ice floes. Then disaster struck. The ship became trapped in a vise of sea ice, unable to move. The crew didn't panic at first. They were prepared for setbacks. They grabbed shovels and picks, chipping away at the ice to free their ship. Each small victory, moving the ship a few meters, brought cheers. But Shackleton knew this was no ordinary challenge. Weeks turned into months. The ice grew thicker, and the Endurance was no longer just stuck, it was imprisoned. The Antarctic summer brought no relief. Instead, the ice tightened its grip. The crew lived under the constant midnight sun, working and sleeping beneath a sky that never darkened. By February, hope faded. The ice wasn't melting, it was crushing the ship. The wooden hull groaned under the pressure, and the crew could only watch as their vessel was slowly destroyed. Shackleton, ever the leader, kept morale high. He organized games, football on the ice, races with the sled dogs, and ensured everyone had a routine. But deep down, he knew the dream of crossing Antarctica was slipping away. By March 1915, temperatures plummeted to -30 degrees C. Food supplies dwindled, forcing the crew to hunt penguins and seals. The Endurance was no longer a ship. It was a wreck sinking deeper into the ice with every passing day. In April, the ice became even more violent. Massive floes collided, creating deafening cracks like cannon fire. On April 14, a powerful wave of ice shattered the asterisk Endurance S hull, sending steel bolts flying and flooding the ship with water. Shackleton gave the order, "Abandon ship!" The crew scrambled to salvage what they could: food, tools, 3 lifeboats, and personal belongings. They set up camp on the ice, naming it Ocean Camp. In the bone-chilling cold, they huddled together in tents, their breath freezing in the air. By October 1915, after nearly 10 months trapped in the ice, the Endurance was beyond saving. On November 21, the ship finally succumbed, breaking apart and sinking into the Weddell Sea. The crew, now stranded on a drifting ice floe, was 2,000 kilometers off course, carried by the currents. They were no longer explorers, they were survivors. Shackleton refused to let despair take hold. He rallied his men, declaring that their new mission was to get home alive. With no radio or way to call for help, they were entirely on their own. The ice floe they camped on was unstable, constantly shifting and cracking. They waited, hoping the ice would drift closer to land. But food was running out, and the crew's sled dogs, once beloved companions, were sacrificed to stretch their supplies. By April 1916, after a year adrift, the ice began to break apart. Shackleton calculated that the nearest land was Paulet Island, but the currents had carried them too far. Their only hope now was to launch the 3 lifeboats and row through the treacherous waters to either Clarence or Elephant Island, 160 kilometers away. Each man was allowed to carry just 2 pounds of personal items. The photographer, Frank Hurley, left behind hundreds of glass plate negatives, keeping only 150, images that would later become iconic evidence of their ordeal. The journey to Elephant Island was brutal. The lifeboats battled towering waves and icebergs, with freezing water soaking the men to the bone. On April 15, 1916, after 5 grueling days, they reached Elephant Island. For the first time in 497 days, they stood on solid ground. But their relief was short-lived. Elephant Island was a barren, desolate place with no hope of rescue. The nearest civilization was South Georgia, 1,300 kilometers across the Drake Passage, one of the most dangerous stretches of ocean in the world. Shackleton knew that waiting on Elephant Island meant certain death. On April 24, 1916, he selected 5 of his strongest men and set out in a single lifeboat, the James, cared for South Georgia. He promised the 22 men left behind that he would return for them. The 1,300-kilometer journey was a gamble against impossible odds, 12-meter waves, hurricane-force winds, and near-constant darkness. For 17 days, they battled the elements, navigating by the stars when the sun vanished. Food was scarce, and the men were cramped, unable to lie down properly. At one point, a massive wave nearly capsized the boat, but Shackleton's leadership kept them focused. On May 10, 1916, they sighted South Georgia, but their ordeal wasn't over. They landed on the uninhabited side of the island, separated from the whaling station by 40 kilometers of treacherous mountains and glaciers. No one had ever crossed South Georgia's interior. It was deemed impossible. With no equipment and dwindling strength, Shackleton and 2 others set out on foot, leaving the rest behind. They climbed icy peaks, slid down slopes, and navigated crevasses, driven by sheer willpower. After 36 hours, they reached Stromness whaling station. The whalers were dumbfounded. Shackleton, unrecognizable with his frostbitten face and wild beard, was a man they thought long dead. After rescuing his 3 companions on the other side of South Georgia, Shackleton turned his focus to the 22 men still stranded on Elephant Island. He made 3 attempts to reach them, but each time ice blocked the way. Refusing to give up, he secured a ship from the Chilean government, and on August 30, 1916, finally reached Elephant Island. The crew had survived under overturned lifeboats, led by Frank Wild, who kept their spirits alive with daily encouragement. "The boss is coming! Be ready!" Miraculously, not a single man was lost. Shackleton had kept his promise. This is the story of Ernest Shackleton and his 28-man crew, a testament to human resilience, leadership, and the will to survive against all odds. From the crushing ice of the Weddell Sea to the perilous crossing of the Drake Passage, they faced nature's wrath and emerged victorious. Shackleton's leadership turned a failed expedition into one of history's greatest survival stories. What did you think of this incredible tale? Drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from. If you enjoyed this, hit that like button and subscribe for more epic stories. Until next time, stay curious.